How is everyone doing today? It is Josh coming at you with another fun video today. We have got the Paint Explainer. Good old video from him. He released one a few whiles ago. Few moons. This one is the worst punishments in history, and I haven't seen this one yet. I've seen a handful of this guy's videos in the past, and I like how he doesn't fluff about. He just goes. The video starts, and he's just like, "Here's all of these things. Learn." So they're always fun to see. So worst punishment in history. So I wonder how gruesome this is going to be. I wonder if it's going to get censored in multiple spots. Probably. We will see. Who knows? Anyway, if you like this content, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe down below, and subscribe to my Patreon if you want to see more in the future. And with all further ado, let's get on into it.
Yakuza finger removal, also known as yubitsume. It's a ritual done to gain forgiveness after a member committed an offense to someone else in his group, and it consists of amputating portions of one's own little finger to show sincere apology and remorse to the other.
Did they do it multiple times on the same one?
Painful because it doesn't usually cause lifelong lasting pain.
Yeah,
and
I'm sure it doesn't,
deadly,
but
unlike the brutal ones further down the list. Bastinado. Bastinado consists of beating the victim with a light rod, knotted cord, or lash, exclusively on the feet. Unlike most types of flogging, it is meant more to be painful than to cause actual injury. Even though if done too harshly or for too long, it might cause the victim to not be able to walk anymore.
I would assume so.
This is also not deadly. Pitch capping. Pitch capping involves pouring hot pitch or tar into a conical paper cap and forcing it onto the victim's head. The pitch was allowed to cool, and the cap was ripped off, removing skin and tissue from the victim's scalp, scarring him for life. It wasn't usually done with the intention of killing, but deadly infections after this weren't that uncommon.
Yeah, I would assume so. Holy crap.
This punishment, also known as gungarao, was mostly used in Asia, specifically India, and it consisted of killing the victim by crushing him with an elephant. There were two variations.
Okay.
If the victim was lucky, his head
straightforward,
would be placed on a pedestal, and the elephant would crush him, instantly killing him. This wasn't
my ancestors are smiling on me, Imperial.
But the second variation wasn't as forgiving.
Did you say the same?
Some royal members wanted to sit down and enjoy a long show, so they ordered the elephant riders to train the elephants to walk over non-vital parts first.
Oh my god! See, that's torture. Holy crap!
Actually walked over his head and killed him. Poina cully.
Jeez.
In ancient Rome, those who would kill their own father were subjected to poina cully. It was a death penalty that consisted of being sewn up in a leather sack with a mix of live animals, including a dog, snake, monkey, and a chicken, and then being thrown into water. Roman decimation.
That's
in ancient
cool.
Rome, when military units or a large group were guilty of capital offenses, such as cowardice, mutiny, or desertion, they went through the process of decimation. A cohort of roughly 480 soldiers that needed to be punished was divided into groups of 10, and each group drew lots randomly. The soldier who picked the shortest straw had to be killed by his 9 friends, often by stoning, clubbing, or stabbing, while the 9 surviving ones had to stay outside the fortified security of the camp for some time.
Holy
Since the killed victim was chosen randomly, all soldiers in the group were potentially liable for execution, regardless of how guilty they were.
Dude, that's
blowing from a
that
gun.
is insane.
Blowing from a gun is a method.
I mean, damn, that's a good way to get some order, but you're going to get a
cannon, which
some
is
treason and some uprising with that kind of
A description of what happens was given by an English soldier in the 19th century, and he said that the victim's head goes straight up into the air for about 40 or 50 feet. The arms fly off right and left, high up in the air, and fall at around 100 yards distance, while the legs drop to the ground beneath the muzzle of the gun. It's this low on the list because the victim probably doesn't feel a thing.
Yeah, probably not.
His death is instant. Basil II's blind journey. Byzantine Emperor Basil II reportedly captured 15,000 Bulgarians during the Battle of Kleiden, so he decided to use them as a message to their homeland. He divided the prisoners into groups of 100, and then he had 99 out of every 100 blinded, with the 100th man being blinded in only one eye, so that he could still lead the other 99 back home.
Oh my
Bulgarian
god!
Tsar Samuel died of a heart attack on October 6, 2014, reportedly due to seeing his soldiers blinded. Castor oil.
That's crazy.
Making someone drink a lot of castor oil caused stomach pain and made them so sick that they could no longer hold their poop together. They would then put the person in a big human-sized barrel and remove them when the person confessed. This could even go as far as leaving the person to drown in their own body fluids inside the barrel if he didn't cooperate. Immurement was used both as an execution method and as a lifelong imprisonment method. It consisted of putting someone in an enclosed space and really tight space, such as behind a wall, for the rest of his life. If it was used as an execution method, the person would be left to starve to death, while if it was used as imprisonment, they would regularly give the victim food.
Yeah, you'd be,
Rack.
oh, that would be, that is
forced to lay
torture.
on a rectangle-shaped wooden rack that stretched the victim's body by pulling the
I've
arms
seen
and
that. Okay,
legs
yeah,
in opposite
that's
directions.
a,
It
this is
caused
a
incredible pain
common one you've
and
seen
could
in
lead
things.
to dislocated
Yeah.
limbs and torn ligaments.
Or
it
just,
was
you know,
mainly used as a
entirely
method to get
removed body
information,
parts.
but it could also be used to tear the victim's limbs out and leave him bleeding to death. Tarring and feathering. Tarring and feathering is a form of public torture where a victim is stripped naked or stripped to the waist, while wood tar, sometimes hot, is either poured or painted onto the person. After that, the victim would have feathers thrown onto him, or he was rolled around on a pile of feathers so that they stuck to the tar. This would not only cause extreme burns to the victim's skin, permanently scarring him, but also psychologically humiliate him in public, as he was meant to look like a giant chicken walking around the street. Choke pear. It was a metal tool that was put into someone's mouth or booty hole and then made bigger on purpose. The tool would stretch the tissue to the point of no
I was expecting you to say booty hole.
Live heart removal. When the Aztecs sacrificed people to Huitzilopochtli, the sun god, the victim would be placed on a sacrificial stone, and the priest would then cut through the abdomen with an obsidian or flint blade. The heart would be torn out, still beating, and held towards the sky in honor of the sun god.
That's fucking hardcore.
It's a collar with 2 sets of metal forks at each end. One set was placed under the chin and the other at the sternum, and the device was secured around the neck. This forced the victim to keep their head raised, leading to severe discomfort and sleep deprivation. The person would be asked questions or just be left there, while the fork slowly pierced through their neck and jaw, and this lasted until the victim could no longer hold their head raised, causing the fork to pierce through. Rat's cup. A method attributed to the Roman Emperor Nero involved tying a cup filled with hungry rats to the victim's stomach and then applying heat
I've
to
heard
the
of this
bottom,
one before.
forcing the rats to burrow through the victim's
I've
body
heard of
to
this one.
escape.
Oh,
In
this
some
one's
parts of
crazy.
South America, they used a variation of this method called the rectoscope, which consisted of inserting
I don't even
living
want
rats into a victim's rectum through a tube, forcing them to make their way through the victim's body to get out. Catherine's wheel.
Didn't want to see that
An
one.
execution method where the victim's limbs were tied to a large wheel and then struck with a hammer or iron bar, breaking their bones in multiple places. The wheel was placed on display later on, often leaving the victim to starve. Boiling alive.
That one felt way better by comparison.
Would be lowered into a large container with a boiling liquid, such as oil, gradually and slowly. The first exposed parts would be the extremities, such as fingers and toes, which have lots of nerve endings and cause incredible pain. Then the skin, muscles, and fat softened and liquefied due to the heat, while internal organs and the flesh got boiled from the outside, making this a slow and agonizing process.
I would assume
In another variation, which is thought to be even more painful and long, the victim would be lowered into a normal temperature liquid, which would be gradually heated.
Yeah, and then you
until
heat it up as it goes. Oh my god.
Keel hauling was a severe maritime punishment where a sailor was tied to a rope and dragged underwater from one side of the ship to the other, passing under the ship's keel. If the person did not drown or get vital damage from the rusty and sharp wooden body of the ship itself, they would just do it again until the person was no longer alive. It was feared for its brutality. Sawing. When used as an execution method, the victim would be hanged upside down to make the blood flow to the head, increasing the time the person was conscious. The executioner would then divide the victim vertically into 2 halves, starting from the groin and moving upwards. Hanged,
that's like some freaking Gears of War stuff right there.
This method was used to execute men convicted of high treason in medieval and early modern Britain and Ireland, and it consisted of multiple steps. The convicted traitor was tied to a wooden board and dragged behind a horse to the execution site. There, he was almost hanged to death, then mutilated and had his organs removed, before being beheaded and his body divided into 4 parts, just in case he was still alive. These remains were often
a drawing quote. I've never known what that actually meant.
Like London Bridge, to warn others about the consequences of being a traitor. Glass tracing.
Drawn and quartered. Okay,
this method wasn't always deadly, but in my opinion, it deserves this spot because of how brutally painful it sounds. It's the method of inserting a glass rod into a man's erect willy and then smashing it with a hammer, causing the glass rod to fragment into multiple small pieces that shattered all over the insides. Bamboo through booty hole. Would be put inside a person's booty hole, and it would be left there. The bamboo would grow really quickly inside the man, causing incredible pain. It was sometimes left until it exited from the other side. Spanish donkey.
Oh my god.
This was a sharp-angled
that was the worst one
on which the victim was forced to sit, straddling it like a donkey, with weights attached to their feet. This would increase
I've seen this one before.
and pain on the body, often causing severe injury to the legs and spine until the victim was ripped apart by their body weight. Brazen bull.
I've seen this one too. You go inside of it and they boil the iron bowl or whatever it is.
And then heat it up with fire underneath. The person inside would feel extreme
and then you see the steam coming out of like the nose of the bowl or something like that.
It was meant to scare others by showing how bad the punishment could be. There were special pipes to make the victim breathe, which also made the screams hearable for the crowd,
Oh my
resulting
God.
in a bull-like sound.
That's a cool. That's a cool one.
From the bull's nose for extra realism. Impalement. The brutal part of impaling, like crucifixion, is that the victim tortured himself. In a famous variant, he was set up high, on a stake, so that it didn't actually penetrate anything vital, so long as he stayed up on his toes, so he could keep it from going any deeper, so long as he kept his own weight on his feet. When the victim would get tired, he would slip a little further, and when he felt the pain, he would scramble up again on the already aching and exhausted muscles.
I don't like these. I don't like. These are starting to get not fun to watch anymore.
Something vital. Another variant consisted of
these are great for like okay I mean damn hey they're doing their job, they're torturing me right now.
And suspend their body weight onto the sharp apex. The chair would slowly rip the person apart. Flaying. Flaying was a gruesome method where the skin was removed from the body while the victim was still alive.
Ugh.
This extreme form of torture
that's like something you see like in
cause
Saw or something like that.
Slow pain and suffering, eventually leading to death through shock or infection.
Yeah,
skin,
I would assume so.
Lacking major blood vessels did not cause rapid blood loss, so victims could remain conscious and endure prolonged agony.
Crazy.
It was often considered a meticulous process, requiring precision and skill from the executioner.
I mean, yeah.
And rather than removing the skin in pieces, cultures sought methods to flay the victim more efficiently and completely, sometimes using substances like boiling water to facilitate the process. Blood eagle. This one was a brutal ritual where the victim's ribs were cut from the spine and spread out to resemble wings, while the lungs were pulled through the openings, causing a slow, agonizing death. It's short, but it's one of the most brutal ones, in my opinion. Lynching.
Okay, interesting.
Also known as death by 1,000 cuts, it was a famous method used in China to prolong the suffering for as long as possible. There were multiple variations of this method, even though almost all of them included cutting the skin deep enough to cause incredible pain, but not deep enough to allow the victim to lose blood. In one variation, the victim was restrained, and an executioner would pull knives out at random, each with a body part.
Death by 1,000 cuts came from. I didn't know this was like, I thought it was just a phrase.
Each time he'd pull a knife out, he would make a cut on that body part. This would continue until the executioner pulled out the knife with the heart on it, and that's when he stabbed the victim through the heart.
Oh, so you get a gotcha when you die? Wait, that's kind of cool.
Tightly around someone's body and cut off the pieces of skin that popped up in the holes of the net. In the most brutal version, they would bury someone up to their neck, make a cross-shaped cut at the crown of the head, peel the skin back, and pour mercury in the wound.
Oh, what the hell? Oh, wait.
Oh, that's kind of separate skin from flesh, and as the person struggled to unbury themselves, they would eventually leave their skin behind in the hole.
Oh, that's cool. Wait a minute.
This one is considered by many to be the worst
that was kind of cool.
method. In this punishment, the condemned person was placed inside a boat or between two boats, lying on their back with their arms and legs protruding through holes. They were force-fed large amounts of milk and honey, which induced severe diarrhea, and their entire body was smeared with the same mixture. This made them attractive to rodents, bugs, wasps, bees, flies, and whatever other animals lived near the lake. They would eat and bite at the victim's flesh. And when the next morning arrived, the boat would be brought back to the coast.
Terrifying.
They would force-feed him another gigantic meal of milk and honey, also placing it on him once more. This was done on a daily basis to prolong the punishment for as long as possible. It was reported that the rats would usually try to go into the person's booty hole, and that the method was so long that it seemed to have no end, with a person surviving 17 days. This person reportedly had his entire face completely covered with wasp, and his flesh was rotting away, filled with swarms of parasites and worms, all while being covered in his own filth. If you want to discuss this video or suggest an idea for the next one, join my Discord.
I don't think I want to discuss the video. I can't believe I just did a reaction to that video. I thought it was like, I knew it was going to be, you know, punishments and stuff like that, like in torture. But damn, some of those I was not expecting. Damn, why do people got to be so mean to each other? Holy crap. Well, luckily we don't do any torture or anything bad like that nowadays, right, guys? Right? Right? Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe.